There's something magical about the kind of old coin-operated amusements you find at the back of roadside attraction gift shops. These machines not only define liminal spaces, but can also create them. They say the ghost is in the machine. But what if it's not in the hardware? What if it's somewhere out in the ether? Somewhere between the RX and TX data lines, between the application and link layers, somewhere between the sender and the receiver. In addition to the Oracle, I fully intend to make more of these artifacts, to place them out in the world to be discovered. Part art installation, part augmented reality game, part magical working. But first, what the f*** is going on with this printer? Stand by.
メロエール
I started this project 9 months ago, and in that time, I traveled to San Francisco to show it at Open Sauce, had a 2-page article about it in Magpie magazine, and had my life turned upside down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Nearly a year ago, I applied to exhibit my modified Game Boys at Open Sauce. And, to my surprise and delight, I was accepted. This feeling was immediately followed by self-doubt and imposter syndrome. I had to prove I was worthy of taking up space and air at an event that people paid to attend. I had to go bigger. For years, I'd had this idea to build a tabletop coin-operated fortune-telling machine, but I had been accepted to exhibit Game Boys, not some fortune-telling machine. And then it hit me. Instead of a mechanical automaton, like that hand, I could display a digital automaton on a Game Boy using a custom ROM. Then, my big project would just fall under the purview of modified Game Boys. I only had 3 months to design, build, program, and test this thing before I had to show up in San Francisco with it at Open Sauce. So, I got to work. I'm lucky to live within minutes of 2 major engineering universities here in the Northwest, both of which have surplus stores. It may be a slight point of contention between me and my wife. Accusations of hoarding have been thrown around. But in the past, I've been able to flip stuff and make a few bucks, like an Amiga with a rare video toaster card, or one of these IBM 3277 terminal units. Actually, I bought 2 of these. I sold the best one, and most of the parts from the second, to a guy who finished restoring it just last year. The rest of that second one was either used in the Oracle's frame, or is sitting here in my basement crammed behind the furnace. This build took forever. Mostly because of 2 things. 1, I have executive dysfunction pretty bad. Planning isn't exactly one of my strong suits. So, this project became more of a living sculpture than an engineered system. I'd try a piece, figure out how it fit with what existed already, and either use it, decide it didn't fit or didn't work and find something else, or decide I really wanted it, but it didn't fit with what was already there, and have to replace an already existing piece to make it work. There was a lot of backtracking. And 2, it's not even a conscious thing, but I somehow refuse to look stuff up. I think I just learn best when I jump in with both feet and figure it out as I go. It would be so much easier if I'd just look up a simple process, but instead, I get so hyper-fixated on something I'm working on, I either forget that the internet exists, or I choose not to use it. For better or worse, I have a habit of brute forcing things until I figure out the solution on my own. Where? Oh, right here. But how does it actually work? Excellent question, other me. Magic. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the basics. There's a Raspberry Pi 0W in the back that controls all of the input from keypad and the coin slot. It's got this thermal printer connected via USB, and it's running the LCD screen. The I/O is controlling 3.3 volt relay modules that press the buttons on the Game Boy. This was admittedly one of those brute force ways of doing things. If I had more time, and maybe I will eventually, I would like to control it with a link cable connected to the Raspberry Pi or a RPi Pico. Probably a Pico because I'm literally out of I/O on this Raspberry Pi. That would be a much cleaner solution, and it might actually get the date right. So the key unlocks this little hinged flap so that people can't get to the thermal printer door and mess around with the paper. That same lock locks the entire front cabinet door. The code is set up to operate in game mode. If you hold down, I think it's the F key for 3 seconds, it allows you to control the Game Boy buttons. There's just way too much of a delay and inconsistency though by using the relays, and so I'd love to implement that using the link cable someday. Additionally, I'd love to put an external cartridge slot so that once in game mode, you could insert your own game and somehow figure out how to mux, what is it, like 28 pins or and swap the games so that it functions just like a normal Game Boy. Maybe even add an external controller port or something. Let me turn this thing around and I'll show you what's going on in the back. Okay, so back here we've got your I/O coming in through this connector. You've got your power coming in here, two resettable fuses, one for the Game Boy, one for the Raspberry Pi and the LCD. I added this little voltmeter up here. The original design just had an ATX power supply inside the unit, but I still had 120 volts AC coming into the box, and I didn't like that. So moved the power supply out to a 5 volt 6 amp power supply, which is apparently just barely enough to run this thing, because when it prints, that thermal printer pulls a lot of amperage and the LCD actually flickers. I don't know, it looks cool, but I'm not sure if it's okay. It's probably not great, but it's still working. So for now, I'm gonna leave it as an aesthetic choice. You got your Raspberry Pi here. These are the relay modules that control the buttons on the Game Boy. That wiring goes through this DB9 connector to the front. This back section is made from part of a PC case. Same with the lower unit. This is just the box from like a mini ATX case. The rest of the upper is made from, I call it a card caddy, from that aforementioned IBM terminal unit. This box came from that IBM terminal unit. The sides, I use these cool little latches, and so this entire top half can be disconnected for transport. I thought about hand painting the overlay, tried hand painting the overlay, failed at hand painting the overlay. This is just a water slide decal, and then I used Rust-Oleum chalked ultra matte chiffon cream, which according to one forum I found is as close as they could find to the old PC case powder coat color, and it's pretty close. I've since replaced the Bluetooth thermal printer with one of these mini receipt thermal printers, filled the hole because I didn't want to cut a new door with this shadow box bit of esoterica, because everything has to turn into a new project apparently. I just realized though that the ROM isn't running. Let's try to reset it. There we go. I did get the Raspberry Pi
boot and automatically run my scripts. And now the ROM is working, as you can see, and it just runs through this standby loop where it says, hello, is anybody there? I don't know, maybe that's corny. I thought it was kind of creepy and cool. I wanted to learn how to program my own game for this project, but I knew I would never have enough time before open source. So I hit up Fiverr, and someone was on there, Julss. I will put her info on the screen right now. Massive thank you to Julss for knocking it out of the park, being super responsive, and actually getting what I meant to do. So I gave her the picture of the oracle that I had modified and a rough idea of how I wanted it to work, and she coded it up and even animated the scrying graphic, which I think is really cool. It's one of my favorite parts, actually. Oh yeah, software. So everything's running on a Raspberry Pi in a headless installation of Raspbian, and I coded everything in Python. Well, I had some help.
This seems like as good a time as any to talk about the uncanny valley elephant in the room. Yes, I used AI to write most of the code for this thing. Yes, it is a little scary. AI, that is, especially in terms of image and video creation and the use cases for the myriad bad actors of the world. That is, bad actors in the InfoSec sense, not Tommy Wiseau. But, for better or worse, that Pandora's box has been opened. And lest we forget, that eponymous container also contained hope. For me, AI represents a rapid prototyping tool that helps my chaotic brain get ideas into functional code quickly, so I can test and iterate. I didn't know Python when I started this project. I still don't, really. But who cares? It works. The barriers are lower than ever for people with big ideas, but maybe not all the specialized training to make those ideas reality. To some, that's terrifying, but I think it's exciting, and ultimately a good thing.
Anyway, essentially what the program does is it waits for a coin or an enter input to start, prompts the user for their birth date, which is entered on the pin pad. It calculates the user's zodiac sign based on their month and day of their birthday, and then starts using the relays to press the buttons on the Game Boy. The idea behind this was to give the illusion that the Game Boy is the thing that's actually doing the scrying and doing the processing. In practice, it still hasn't worked out. It still gets the date wrong almost every time. I'm not positive why. I think it's a combination of the duration of the pulses from the Raspberry Pi. Sometimes it presses it like 5 times, sometimes it doesn't press it at all. I don't know why. Combined with, there might be an issue with how the ROM itself is waiting for the button press interrupts, for lack of a better term. I don't know if that's the right term. That's how I think of it. In the meantime, jumps off and runs a sub-process to call ChatGPT with the prompt, giving it the zodiac sign, and then asking it to write the horoscope in the literary style of H.P. Lovecraft / Dr. Seuss. An idea, by the way, that I got from this book. Receives that horoscope back from ChatGPT, creates a bitmap out of it, and then appends that bitmap to an existing bitmap with my logo and a QR code. And then hopefully, roughly about the time it's done running through the ROM, should be spitting out your horoscope down here at the printer.
Open sauce was amazing. Life-changing even? We'll get into that a little bit more later. I don't even know where to begin. I had stayed up the night before flying out to Open Sauce, 5 a.m. flight, by the way, working on it until the very last second. So, after I got there, fun side story, I am such a country bumpkin that I didn't know how to open the door on my Lyft driver's Tesla. I still don't, actually. I really kind of drove the point home that I'm just some guy from the middle of fucking nowhere, Idaho, going to hang out with the big kids at Open Sauce in San Francisco. Got to my hotel, got set up with my makeshift lab, and couldn't get it to boot. In my haste to get everything packed, I neglected to put a spacer behind one of the mounting holes on the Raspberry Pi, which allowed the board to flex just enough to crack the micro SD card. Fuck. So, I finally found a Walgreens, bought an overpriced SD card, and got back to work. I stayed up until I think it was 3 a.m. that night before load-in. Load-in was at I think 7 or 8. And so I rolled in to the pier that next morning, running on about 6 hours of sleep for the past 48 hours. I was exhausted. But nothing was going to compare to walking into that pier for the first time. I don't know, it was fucking magical, man. I've never been to a maker fair. I've never been to like a Comic-Con. I've never been to anything remotely like this before. So to be surrounded by so many passionate people who make cool shit was one of the greatest feelings in the world. I met so many cool people, got to talk to so many cool creators, got to talk to so many cool attendees and other exhibitors about their projects, got to tell everybody about my project. I felt at home, like I'd finally found myself. It was that profound and important to me. Anyway, where was I? I guess thank you to Will. Thank you to all of the organizers behind the scenes. Thank you to the sponsors and the exhibitors and the creators and everybody I talked to. It felt so right to be able to talk to people that got it. Especially to the person, what did they say? Oh, they noted that looking into the screen of the Game Boy, as it says, scrying, was in itself a form of scrying. I love that. So I flew home, got back to my desk job, got back to life. I picked up a lot of great suggestions on how to improve the UX of the Oracle. I've been making a lot of improvements to, well, for one, I replaced that shitty Bluetooth thermal printer with a shitty wired thermal printer. It's okay. It's better. It doesn't shut itself off. It works every time. And well, that's all that really matters, right? Oh yeah, I quit my job, by the way. You're probably thinking I'm an idiot for leaving 10 years in a career that I went to school for, but here's how I had to think of it. I was kind of a miserable prick for a while, and my choice was between a reliable income with a predictable job that I hated, or my family's mental health. Easy choice. Maybe I'll talk more about that some other time. I'm sure there will be update videos in the future, so stick around for that. Now's probably a great time to remind you to like and subscribe. It goes a long way for any YouTube channel, but it's especially important for new channels like mine. That's not true. I made that up. I don't know if that's true. Sorry. But do it anyway. Thanks.